Hi, my name's Steve Lang. I'm the Assistant Director for Career Services at Central Washington University's Westside Centers at Des Moines and Pierce County. One of the things that my colleagues and I find that students struggle with the most when they're drafting their resumes, cover letters, and preparing for interviews is articulating their knowledge, skills, and abilities to potential employers. This presentation is designed to provide you with kind of a better understanding and a process for doing that. So why do you need to articulate your knowledge, skills, and abilities? Well, it's to convince an employer to invite you for a job interview in the essence of a resume. And then the best resumes use those bulleted descriptive statements with action verbs to describe job tasks, skills, accomplishments, and how you've contributed to the benefit of a company or organization. Basically, what you need to do is you need to help a prospective employer recognize the value you can bring to his or her company or to this position. So what do employers want to see demonstrated? This is a list of attributes that from the Job Outlook from 2020 that was put together by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And I won't go through the whole list, but I'll rattle off some of them. So the top skills that they're looking for is problem solving skills, the ability to work as a team, strong work ethic, analytical, quantitative skills, communication skills, and you notice this is written, and then leadership and communication skills, verbal. These are the types of things. These are almost all soft skills that you need to tuck into these bulleted descriptive statements, as opposed to listing them in a relevant skills section. So rather than going through the rest of this list, if you want to freeze the frame, go ahead and you can look at these others. But one of the things I want to point out is communication skills is very high on the list, higher than verbal. And drafting a really effective resume is one good way to demonstrate that. So first, what I want to do is I want to define knowledge, skills, and abilities. These are generally viewed as attributes required to perform a job. That's what employers look at them as. They're attributes required to perform a job. And you demonstrate these through your education, experience and training, which is what you put on your resume. So what I want to go do now is I just want to go through and define these for you. So knowledge is a body of information applied directly to the performance of a task or function. I'll repeat that. The body of information applied directly to the performance of a task or function. If you go to Webster's dictionary, I've noted that at the bottom, it says the fact or condition of knowing something with familiarity gained through experience or association. But this is the definition of knowledge. So it's important to know what knowledge is. Skills are an observable competence to perform a learned act. So this is the performance of a learned act. Again, I've pulled up the Webster's dictionary definition of skills, and it says the ability to use one's knowledge effectively and readily in execution or performance. So abilities are the competence to perform an observable behavior or a behavior that results in an observable outcome or product. So basically what we're saying is that your knowledge, skills, and abilities are the core competencies that employers are looking for. And so again, I pulled the definition from Webster's dictionary on abilities, and it says the quality of being able to do something, especially with the physical, mental, financial, or legal power to accomplish something. So how do you begin to articulate your knowledge, skills, and abilities? The same way you begin developing a resume. You need to know yourself, your strengths, your interests, skills, what your values are, what motivates you, and you really should create a list of the achievements from your past experiences. You need to inventory and describe what you've learned, which is your knowledge, where and how you've applied it, which are your skills, and the results you've achieved, which are your abilities. And then quantify whenever possible using such things as percentages, dollar figures, and other metrics. With each descriptive statement, you should try and address at least 3 of these questions: the who, what, where, when, why, and how of what you did. And then how do you connect your knowledge, skills, and abilities to a position? Well, study the position description requirements of a job to which you are applying. If you're not not readily applying to a specific job, find position descriptions that match the type of job that you're preparing for, and then use those. And then on that position description, highlight the requirements and keywords, which are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that the employer is seeking. And then in the margin next to the position requirements and keywords that you've highlighted, list your education and experience that most closely match. And so here's sort of an example of a position description where an individual has gone through and read the specific requirements, keywords, and then listed over in the right-hand margin over here, what jobs and what experiences they have where they demonstrated those. And then how do you describe these for a position? As we often say, you use action words or verbs to best describe how your education and experiences match the position requirements. And then instead of drafting up a related skills or a skills section where you list all those soft skills, you want to tuck those soft skills into your bullets. And then sometimes making that first word, that action verb relate to your soft skills is really particularly effective. And then it's also important not to use a narrative style or personal pronouns, I, me, or my. So how do you conceptualize these statements? Well, I think it really works well to draw upon the interview preparation practices, such as PAR, which is a problem, action, result, which is what King County uses in many of their position descriptions, or STAR, which is situation, task, action, result, which is where you put yourself in a what was the situation or task you were involved in, what was the action you took, and what was the result. I'll just take PAR as an example, as that's what I have here on the screen. So you want to describe a problem or a challenge or task that you faced in a particular position, and then describe the specific actions you took and what knowledge and skills and abilities you applied to address it. And then you want to provide information about the benefits or the value to the organization that resulted from those actions. And again, this is where you want to quantify, include percentages, dollar figures, and other metrics if possible. Now, sometimes people find it easier, rather than thinking, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, here's the result. Sometimes it's easier to look at it in the reverse. What did I accomplish? And then think kind of back through the process. Okay, what did I do to accomplish that? And so sometimes reversing the process can work better for people to kind of trace back, thinking about the actions they took to address a particular challenge or problem. So how do you build your knowledge, skills, and abilities and statements into these statements? And so one of the things that you want to do is I've pulled 3 specific examples from individuals I've worked with. So we can show you how we developed and expanded on their descriptive statements. So this particular one is a person had been in a marketing assistant position, and this is just one of the descriptive statements they had on their resume under this position. They said, one bullet, assisted company to create new website. That's fine. It says exactly what they did. And these are the types of statements that we often see students utilize on their resumes. Then they're just say what they did. They don't really provide much other information. So what I asked the student to do is I said, okay, well, see if you can expand upon this a little bit. Think about a little bit more about what you did. So they came back and they said, helped marketing team to create new graphic designs for website. Well, that's better. That's better than assisted company to create new websites. It says, okay, they helped the marketing team. That says they've done some teamwork. They said graphic designs, which says, okay, brought graphic designs into the picture. So that's great. But then as I sat down and had a conversation with a student and had them describe more clearly what they did in this role, we came up with this 3rd bullet, which they used on their resume. Collaborated with a 3-person marketing team to create new user-centric graphic designs for print and web that contributed to a 30% increase in customers over 2 years. As you can tell, that is much stronger. There's much more information there. It's going to be much more impressive to an employer. They've got a lot more action words. Collaborated, they said, with a 3-person marketing team. And then they also said to create new user-centric, which means they used some research to come up with graphic designs that were most appropriate. And they actually added print as well as web. And then they quantified it with contributed 30% increase in customers over 2 years. So obviously this is much more impressive, and an employer reading any one of these 3 statements is going to pick number 3 every time. So here's a second example. This is a person who had been in a corporate administrative staff position for a while. They came back to school to get their bachelor's degree, and they worked with me on a resume. And the first resume for this corporate administrative staff position that they've been in, the first one of the bullet statements they had was assisted with planning annual corporate retreat. Okay, again, basically what this just says is what they did. It really does not provide any other information. So when I asked them to kind of expand upon that, the first effort that they came forward with was, well, I helped plan and facilitate an annual corporate retreat for 200 employees. That was much better because it says, okay, now they've planned and facilitated and they've quantified with 200 employees. But as I sat down and talked with them, we actually expanded on it even further. And the third one, which we ended up using on the resume, was collaborated with a 4-person team to plan and facilitate annual corporate retreat for 200 employees. So I made some little notes of myself at the bottom, because what this is as well, the first bullet describes the task that that individual did, and the second one adds a new action word and quantifies it. The third one shows that that person was a team player, and that's really important. So I have one more example that will show you. This is a marketing manager position. Now, this was a non-traditional student. This is a student who had been out in the workplace for over 10 years. They'd actually been working for this company for over 10 years and worked themselves up. But they came back to get a bachelor's degree to enhance their opportunities for advancement. So when they came and had some bulleted descriptive statements for this marketing manager position they've been in for a number of time, one of the bullet statements was hired and managed company telemarketing team. Okay, hired and managed company telemarketing team. That says what they did. 2 good, strong action words, hired and managed. But then when I asked them to expand on it a little bit more, what else did you do? They came up with the second one: recruited, trained, and managed telemarketing team of 60 plus employees. So now they've got another couple of additional action words in the recruited and trained, and they've quantified it, 60 plus employees. But as we talked more and more about the position, more and more information about what this person did in that position came out. And what we ended up with is the third one: recruited, trained, and managed 3 production supervisors and a telemarketing team of 65 employees to consistently exceed 85% closing rate and generate annual sales of $20 million. That is extremely impressive. Now, not very many traditional students are going to have that kind of experience they can draw on, but the numbers are not, the totals, the amounts are not as important as just thinking about this process and getting as much information into your descriptive statements as possible to describe what you've done. So to recap the process: examine your education and experience to determine your knowledge, skills, and abilities and how you've applied them. And then study the position descriptions for keywords and requirements. Use action words and tuck those soft skills into your statements to demonstrate how your knowledge, skills, and abilities match the position. And so in other words, tuck those soft skills into those statements rather than listing those soft skills in a skills section. And then try to answer at least 3 of these things: who, what, where, when, why, and how, and quantify whenever possible when you're drafting these statements. And then do not use narrative style or personal pronouns. So what I've tried to do is provide you with a kind of a process to go through to enhance your descriptive skill statements, your bulleted statements for your resumes. I know this is difficult. It takes some time. And I encourage you to reach out to me or reach out to any one of my career services colleagues for assistance with this. I really hope you will do that. Here is our career services contact information, our phone number. Probably not the best thing to use while we're teleworking, but I would certainly go ahead and email us at career@cw.edu, or go to our website, because there's a tremendous amount of resources there, and you can also find links to book appointments with any of the counselors. So hopefully you found this helpful, and we will certainly look forward to helping you in the future.